that chronologically, in using the BC system of calendar, you will measure from 100 to 1. It is Anno Domini or AD that usually start from 0 and is going up. So while calculating the years in BC, it is going to be in descending order. So the Assyrian Empire precipitated their civilization between 720 BC to 620 BC. And then they founded the town of Azor. Coincidentally, this Azor happens to be their chief god, which they worship. Remember, I told you that they were warlike. In fact, it was their warlike nature and their ability to manufacture things using the abundance of the Nile. Because they manufacture things like iron ore, copper, which they use in fighting wars, which they use in making ridges in form of agriculture, and which they use in cooking. So they developed the art of making spears, the art of making what they can use to dominate their environment. And this exactly explains why they founded the town Azor, which they touch up very well to suit the purpose of their civilization. Now, apart from Azor, these warlike people made Nineveh their capital. You remember Nineveh in the Bible, where Jonah was asked to go and preach to them at Nineveh. Nineveh happens to be a very beautiful capital brought up by the Assyrians. It was in Nineveh that their political and economic headquarters was situated. It was also in Nineveh that majority of their operators of the government lives. So great kings such as Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Ashurbanipal, they thrived in Nineveh. You will discover that whenever they engage in warfare, whenever they go on military expedition, any booty of war that they capture, they will always bring this to Nineveh to share. And as a mark of honor, a warrior, a soldier, an Assyrian soldier, would display the head of his victim on his chest, and then the person will be going about the town of Nineveh brandishing the head that he has killed this person as a mark of domination, especially the head of the king of the town where they are, engaging war. So it is a thing of pride during this period, because it was what they used to assume power to themselves. So as a result of this, Assyria became very powerful. They used chariots of iron. They used chariots driven by horses. It was not only infantry soldiers that they engage in war. They also have cavalry soldiers. And the system of their shooting of arrows to their enemy is such that the enemy will think that it was God that was raining spears and arrows on them, because and coming down on the enemies. And ordinarily, the enemy will be caught unaware. So this explains the power, the kind of system they use in fighting wars. And this explains the reason why such kings like Ashurbanipal, like Sennacherib, and like Sargon, especially Sargon II, thrived seriously. These kings brought their ingenuity into play. They were not only political kings, they were also military kings. And then their throne was held in awe. You dare not falter, you dare not flout the rule of soldiering in Assyria, because you will be put to death. So all this brought fears into the mind of the Assyrian soldiers especially, and then they had it in mind that when they go to war, they must win. So they conquered territories. Remember I told you, the Cushite, the Axumite, the Meroitic culture was brought down by the coming of the Assyrians. Even the almighty Egyptians at that time were also dismantled, and they dwindled because of the coming of such kings as Sennacherib and Ashurbanipal. So at the height of Assyrian power, Assyrian Empire consisted of Babylonian. Though we are going to talk about Babylonian Empire, but even at this point, Babylon was a very, very small enclave, very small community, but then was controlled by Assyria. So it comprised of Babylonia, also part of Asia Minor. Syria was also part of the place, Palestine and Egypt. Remember I told you that Egypt and its splendor was brought down by the coming of the Assyrians. They had the knowledge of using the alluvial deposit coming from River Nile to manufacture things. And if you remember in the Bible that there were some people that were called the Hyksos that has chariots of iron that Pharaoh was used, especially the Pharaoh that got drowned in the river, Pharaoh Memphisa. He used the chariots brought by the Assyrians, manufactured by the Assyrians. In fact, there was a kind of history that said the kind of artistic works put up by Nigerians of Taruga and Daima that was called the Nok culture had a kind of similarity with the artistic works of the Assyrians. But you will discover definitely that the Assyrians were the ones that were experts in making all these things. So at the apogee means zenith or peak. So at the peak or apogee or zenith of Assyrian civilization, the empire was bigger even than Egypt under King Thutmose III. Remember King Thutmose III, that he was a virile king in Egypt that did much to them, to such an extent that he even enlarged the temple at Karnak in Egypt. So you cannot toy with pharaohs in Egypt because they were demigods in themselves. So an empire that was bigger than Egypt under Thutmose II was a vast and virile empire, and that is Assyria. It was also bigger than Babylonian Empire under King Hammurabi. We are going to talk about King Hammurabi, but let me just give you a leeway into it. Remember that they used to say the code of Hammurabi. When you remember the code of Hammurabi, you remember that he was a king that was reckoned with in Babylon. And then Assyrian Empire was also bigger than Sumeria, that is the Sumerian Empire under Sargon I. Remember, we are talking of Sargon II in Assyria, but Sargon I ruled in Sumeria. And remember, I told you that the Chaldeans, the Sumeria, and the Semitic people thrived and lived around Mesopotamia, and Mesopotamia is between River Tigris and the River Euphrates. So as per their civilization, though they did not create much impact during peacetime, because they devoted much of their time on war. You see, when I said this, that they didn't create much impact during peacetime, it is not that they were not doing anything. After all, they eat, they practice agriculture, they do artistic things, they do marry, they got married, and they do, but they prepare much for war. Everything that they did were usually, put up for the purpose of war, because they were always on the move. The Assyrians were always on the move. They took nothing for granted, and they don't take liberty for license. So whatever they do is always devoted to their war, and they were always at alert, because they were doing this in order to keep them afloat any eventuality. Because at this time, wealth depends on might. The more powerful you are, the more wealthier you are. So those that were not powerful were easily defeated. But an empire that is powerful will not be defeated. And then they will always be keeping the tides going. They will be afloat of the sands of time every time. So, in this, the capital at Nineveh was the cynosure of all eyes. They did many things. They built magnificent capitals at Nineveh, and then they were artistic, and their work of art were made to depict their domestic works, like I've said, wars, huntings, and court life. When Assyrians were not going to war, they make merry. They drink the best wine, especially King Ashurbanipal. And then the great kings form a huge library, because they love education. King Ashurbanipal, when he was king, he had a library of about 22,000 clay tablets. Let me explain this. Assyrian schooled, and they had handwriting made of what is called cuneiform. Cuneiform. It is a wedge-shaped system of writing, and it is different from hieroglyphic, which is pictorial system of handwriting. So Ashurbanipal collected about 22,000 clay tablets. You see, in Yoruba, there's a kind of clay we call amma. It's a soft clay. So Ashurbanipal built schools. He collected these clays in mounds, and then he will put them, many of them there. Then students will use pens that were made of reeds. Reed is a kind of small stem, but it will be frayed at the tip so that it will be used to write on the clay. When students are coming in the morning, students will pick one soft clay mound. Then they will flatten it. When they flatten it like this, they will sit in their classes. Whatever they want to write, they will use the reed that has been frayed at the tip to write wedged handwriting, which is called cuneiform. Whenever they want to rub it off, they will just rub it off with their hands and little water. The way you rub anything you write on soft clay, which I called amma in Yoruba when we were in the primary schools. And whenever they finish schooling at the end of the day, then they will fold it up, mount it again, and put it where they have collected it in the morning and go home. This is how Ashurbanipal brought a kind of education into Assyria. And the kind of writing that we are seeing today emanated from this cuneiform system of handwriting. With this, they were able to record the activities of their war, of their peace, of their kings, of their everything in Assyria. So the library gave an early Babylonian story of the creation of the world. The creation of the world. Ordinarily, you wouldn't have known what happened before. But like Cicero, when he said, not to know what happened before one is born is to forever remain a child. And since we have people that are highly cerebral, that use their ingenuity to bring up these things, definitely Ashurbanipal wanted a situation whereby Assyrian Empire will be recorded in history as a legacy of civilization that thrived in the ancient world. And this explains why this system of schooling, of education, of academic was precipitated. So the stories of the creation of the world, the stories of the flood, the great delugement, the great inundation, the great flood that happened during the time of Noah was recorded in Assyrian handwriting. Also, this Ashurbanipal tablet was found in British Museum in 1850, and it contained the cuneiform handwriting of ancient Mesopotamia. I hope you understand. Now, I told you that the Assyrians were warlike people, and I told you that they devoted most of their time to war, and I told you that they were always in the offensive, putting others in the defensive. There is no way in which this will not affect their peacetime. Whether we like it or not, nobody has the whole of the time. Sooner than later, Assyria began to disintegrate. The disintegration of Assyria came because of many factors. One, when an empire became too large, weak rulers will not be able to contain it. And when weak rulers were not able to rule, they will not rule effectively. Communities that were tribute-paying communities will be asserting their independence. Two, when too much effort is devoted into war, they will always be in the war front. Those that were left behind will not be enough to contain any external aggression eventually when it comes. Three, dynastic struggles will always set in. I want to be king, you want to be king. And everybody will be pursuing his own aspiration. Four, when there is no enough food at home, because all effort has been devoted into fighting wars. Wars of attrition, wars of territorial conquest, wars of expansion, wars of revenge, and many other wars. So because of this, agriculture was neglected. Not that they were not practicing agriculture, but they may not practice it the way they're supposed to practice it. So in this sense, agriculture was neglected and food became shortening. People began to go hungry, and people began to go dissentful of what their leaders are doing. As a result of this, Assyrian began to disintegrate. Dwindleness started coming. The tapestry of wars that Assyrian put up began to become shortened. So as a result of that, the military had no time for peace. Because they were military, they were always learning new strategies of war. And the Assyrian people hated this kind of living. Like I told you, when encroachers comes and then they brandish what they like, then they will jettison those that are precipitating what they do not like. So this explains the reason Why the Chaldeans besieged the capital, that is Nineveh, and the empire fell. In 612 BC, Nineveh fell to the Chaldeans. Not because Assyria was not powerful, not because they do not have military capability, not because they do not have modern weapons of war at that time, and not because they did not have able-bodied men that can fight, but because there were saboteurs at home who gave way. Even the military men that were fighting did not like the system, because there wasn't any time, put up for them to relax. From age 7, a male child who have been conscripted. So at this end, Nineveh became taken over by the enemy camp, and the empire fell in 612 BC. You see, what we have said concerning Assyria is a true picture of an empire that rose and an empire that fell. Try as much as possible, like I've told you, to view this lecture very well. Try as much as possible, like I told you, to also read other sources. While you are sitting down at home, relax, keep to the rules, thank the ingenuity of Adeyemi College of Education that has brought this kind of online lectures up. Also thank the federal government, for giving this kind of directive. I wish you the best. Thank you.
Finish him. Kill the guy now. You have the gun. Beat him. What's wrong with you?
What? What is this?
Good day, sir.
You are watching Jakepan in my house.
No, it's King Kong, sir.
King Kong. You've never heard of ACTV before in your life? ACTV is very educative, informative, and there are football sport there. There is entertainment. There are a lot of things you can even attend lectures here. All you know is watch all those nonsense artists and do nonsense, or you watch nonsense on TV. Last night you almost came in bed with your fist.
It's not me, sir.
And you wake up every morning, the bed will be so rough, like you've been fighting kung fu in your dream. That's the reason why you have F's in your courses, like especially made for you.
I have you last semester.
We eat by pounds on you. Very stupid. Oh, yeah, change that section to ACTV right now. And oh God, the baby wants to have the first born. Stupid boy.